give a resounding welcome tonight to Dr. Bankole Olarewaju, even as I hand over the microphone to him. Atama for the doctor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I especially welcome us to this great occasion, and I want to appreciate the organizers for inviting me here. I want to give a special salute to our Commandant General and all the senior officers. And I'm trusting God that I will be able to do justice to the topic before. Lecture notes on chaplaincy, ethics, and conduct, presented by Dr. Tunde O. Bankole, FCCA, MWAC, at the Redeemed Chaplaincy International Week on Monday, 1st May 2023. The Grand Commander General, the Chief Commander General, and the Commandant General of RCI, the National Executive Council of RCI, the rank and file of RCI, invited guests, officers from all chaplains organizations, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol duly observed. I want to use this opportunity to felicitate with the Commandant General and the National Executive Council for the 2023 RCI Convention and commemoration events for late Chaplain General Dare Adeboye and Chaplain General Boyo Joseph. As the president of the African Institute of Professional Chaplaincy and Intelligence Studies and the president of the Association of West African Chaplains, I joined the entire chaplaincy community in Africa to honor these fallen heroes who left a message with us in which we all must learn from. You lived for something or you die for nothing. This hero has been remembered or are being remembered today for their impact among us. Serving as one of the facilitators in this noble conference is a rare privilege that I will not take for granted. On this note, I want to specially thank the organizers of this international event for believing in my capacity to serve as one of the guest speakers in this conference. The introduction. The topic before me tonight is very timely, and this will create a headway for chaplaincy profession in Nigeria. Chaplaincy has become an household name globally. Therefore, ethics and conduct of practitioners is very, very important. Now, as I prepare to go into the lecture in details, I will do a proper teaching, because one of the most important aspects in chaplaincy is the area of ethics and conduct. And I want to say this, that without ethics and conduct, there is nothing like chaplaincy profession. So therefore, the ethics and the conduct is very important. I will not be able to do justice to this if I don't first go back to the preliminary or the fundamental of chaplaincy, which is the divination. I know we have several divinations in our mind concerning chaplaincy. And permit me to say, whatever divination that you have in your mind is perfectly right. It's perfectly right. But I will pick it from here. We have what we call primitive chaplains, and we have what we call modern chaplain. When I mean primitive and modern chaplains, I mean the olden days chaplains and the modern day chaplain. Chaplaincy as an act of pastoral care, support, and counseling for people in need, with a mission to respond with love and compassion in their holistic existence. I repeat again, chaplaincy is an act of pastoral care, support, and counseling for people in need. People in need. I repeat again, the act of pastoral care, support, and counseling for people in need. Now, what are the examples of people in need? It could be people who are going through trauma, people who are going through depression, people who are frustrated, people who are stigmatized, people who are emotionally unstable, people who need rehabilitation, reinformation, reintegration, and so on and so forth. Therefore, chaplaincy as a profession is all about serving or saving lives and rescuing lives. I repeat again, chaplaincy as a profession is all about saving lives and rescuing lives. Permit me to say this again, that it is all about the spirit of humanity. As a chaplain, you must have the spirit of humanity and the spirit of divinity. No wonder most chaplaincy, their logo is always service to God and humanity. So it is all about humanity and divinity. Okay. Now, what is pastoral care? Pastoral care is an ancient model of emotional, social, and spiritual support that can be found in all cultures and traditions. Pastoral care goes beyond your religious belief. It goes beyond your denominational beliefs. Now, let me go a bit further. The term is considered as a non-religious form of support. A non-religious form of support. As a chaplain, you are to provide pastoral care, support, and counseling for people in need. Let me now use this word, irrespective of their religious belief, affiliation, or denomination. Irrespective of their religious belief, denomination, or affiliation. The theory and philosophy behind modern chaplaincy is that it is not dependent on any particular set of beliefs or tradition. Now, I will not go too much into this particular statement. One thing about this modern chaplaincy is that it goes beyond any particular form of denomination or religious belief. As a chaplain, you are to perform or render chaplaincy service to whoever, irrespective of their religious affiliations or denomination. But I won't go too much into that. In a modern context, pastoral care is a humanistic approach in providing support and comfort. This elucidates the difference between a chaplain and an ordinary pastor. Modern chaplaincy. Like I said, we have primitive chaplains. Primitive chaplain is an olden days chaplain that has been practiced since the inception of chaplaincy. The olden days chaplaincy that has been practiced since the inception of chaplaincy. But the modern day chaplain have really professionalized chaplains to the point that we have chaplain in every stratus of life. We have an hospital chaplain, which is also called like an healthcare chaplain. We have institutional chaplain or school chaplain. We have prison chaplain. We have cemetery chaplain. We have counter-terrorist chaplain. We have domestic chaplain. We have transit chaplains. We have several areas of life. Chaplaincy is a profession that touches every areas of human endeavor. But in the primitive kind of chaplain, everybody is just chaplain, no specialization. But one of the things that the modern day chaplaincy has helped us is to be able to specialize. Therefore, the modern day chaplaincy helps us to marry chaplaincy with our individual visions. For example, we have people that have prison ministry. Now, as a chaplain officer, there's how you can bring together your prison ministry and marry it with chaplaincy. And that's why we can have a prison chaplain. So also, we have people who have healing ministry now, or hospital ministry. There's how you can marry it with chaplaincy. Then we have what we call an healthcare chaplain. We have people who have maybe children ministry or school ministry. They marry it with chaplaincy. We can have what we call institutional or school chaplains. So and so on and so forth. Now, modern day chaplaincy refers to the following. Number one, the modern day chaplaincy refers to relating to the present day chaplaincy. Number two, it relates to the contemporary chaplaincy. Number three, it involves recent techniques, method, or ideas of chaplaincy. Number four, it also refers to recent period of development in chaplaincy. Why do I need to go this far? RCI is one of the biggest institutions in chaplaincy in the world. Let me say the word. The reason being that Redeemed Christian Church of God is a very large organization, and they have a large number of chaplains. Even though we have few chaplains officers seated here, there is no country that Redeemed is represented that we don't have a potential chaplaincy representing the RCI there. So the RCI is the biggest chaplaincy institution we have in the world. So therefore, I need to go deep into the foundation of this particular topic. The modern chaplaincy has now spread the ministry of chaplaincy to people of other religious and philosophical tradition. In modern usage, a clergy or minister appointed to an institution or corporate body, such as cemeteries, prisons, hospitals, schools, colleges, universities, embassies, and armed forces, are now usually called a chaplain. But let me say this. One of the things that the modern day chaplaincy helps us is that some people are not a clergyman, but they receive training as a chaplain officers, and they are now into chaplaincy profession, but they are not clergy. So the primitive chaplaincy, or the olden days chaplaincy definition, defines chaplain as a clergyman. But the modern day chaplaincy tells us that there are people who are not clergy but are trained as chaplaincy, are now into chaplaincy profession. Now let me go a bit further. Due to the inventions of modernizations and civilization, the trend of things have changed. In recent time, many lay people who are not members of the clergy but have received professional training in chaplaincy are now appointed as chaplains in schools, in hospitals, in companies, in universities, in prisons, and so many other places to work. Therefore, chaplains are service providers. The modern day chaplaincy is all about an active chaplain rendering service to humanity. Chaplains are service provider. Now, sequel to the aforementioned, there will be a need for me to recoin the topic, and therefore the topic will now be the ethics and conduct of modern chaplaincy. The ethics and conduct of modern chaplaincy. Now let me go fully into the topic. A code of conduct is a vital asset in any organization. A code of conduct is a vital asset for any organizations to have. Any organization without a code and a conduct has no future. The scope of these presentations will cover the following. Number one, in my presentations, I'll cover the following 5 points. Number one, what is a code of conduct? Number two, why is a code of conduct necessary for chaplaincy profession? Number three, what a code of conduct should reflect. Number four, professional ethics of modern chaplaincy. Number five, what Why is ethics important? Why is ethics important? Now, let me go to the first one. What is a code of conduct? A code of conduct is a set of values. I repeat again, a code of conduct is a set of values, is a set of rules, is a set of principles, is a set of standards outline what the organization expects from our personnel or officers. Let me repeat again, and I'll be very slow a little bit because I want to carry us all along. A code of conduct is a set of values, is a set of rules, is a set of principles, is a set of standards which outline what the organization expects from our officers. A code of conduct is a set of rules, is a set of standards, is a set of principles that RCI as an organization expects from their officers. Most time, code of conduct take big pictures idea tied to the organization's overall mission and core values and relate them to the behaviors and practice they desire from their members on a day-to-day basis. One of the good things about code of conduct is that it explains the mission of the organization and the core value of the organizations and relates it to the behaviors and practice that RCI as an organization desire from their members on their day-to-day basis. Take, for instance, even in the military, we have code of conduct. For example, in the military, or let me say the military or the chaplains in the military is being controlled by 3 different sets of rules or constitution or principles or standard. Number 1, if you are a chaplain in Nigerian army, for example, you are under the law and constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is 1. Number 2, you are under the law of the armed forces. Number 3, you are under the law of your unit, which is the chaplaincy department. Now, let me now explain. In the military, it is not a crime to drink alcohol. Am I right? It is not a crime. But as a chaplain in the military, the standard and the code of conduct of that department, that priesthood department, forbid that a priest must take alcohol. I don't know if you are getting what I'm saying. Okay. Creating a code of conduct is a statement from leader laying out their expectation and communicating the ethical principle they feel are most fundamental to success. What I mean is this. To create a code of conduct, it is the action or work from the leaders laying out what they expect from you as an officer and communicating it to you. Not that there will be code of conduct that you will not be aware of. You need to know the do's and don'ts of this department or institution that you belong to. Generally, it reflects the culture leadership is looking to promote. Code of conduct reflects the culture that the leaders of RCI is looking to promote in their officers. A code of conduct is closely related to a code of ethics to the extent that the phrases are often interchanged. Code of conduct and code of ethics are almost closely related. Sometimes we interchange them and use them for each other, but there is a slight difference. However, while there is tremendous overlap, there is also a slight similarity between the two. Before I go further again, let me quickly tell you the similarity. Number 1, A code of conduct offer principles. A code of conduct offer principle defining the ethics of the profession. The code of conduct gives us principle that defines the ethics of this profession, but it also contains specific rules for officers' actions and behaviors. One thing about code of conduct is that it's much on the officers' conduct and behaviors. Why is it that two officers must not be found fighting? It is because there is a code of conduct. The code of conduct is what guides the action and the behavior of the officers. The code of ethics. The code of ethics is a broader thing. It's very broad. It provides a set of principles that affect officers' mindset and decision making. Ethics provides some set of principles that affect the officer's mindset and decision making. Many times I could remember the last conferences that maybe second to the last conferences that I attended, or the first one that I attended in RCI, organized by Div 1. One barrister spoke about emotional intelligence. Yes, it's part of the things you learn under the ethics. The ethics provide set of principles that affect the officer's mindset and their decision making. While the code of conduct is a set of rules that guides the officer's action and behavior. Okay. A code of conduct in practice can range from a big picture idea to specific rules. For example, a code of conduct for chaplaincy profession can outline how officers and members should behave to reflect the organization's mission. There is how you are expected to behave. There is how you are expected to act. Let me give us this funny example. One day I visited one of my foster mother, Barrister Fumi Falana. I visited her in a church to minister because she's also a pastor. So one of the pastor under her, she's a pastor in Foursquare. One of the pastor under her stole one of the instruments they were not using before. Anytime mommy travels abroad, she buys some new set of instruments. The one they were using, they will pack it into the store. So maybe this pastor felt she has forgotten that they have that instrument in the store since they have a new one. So he took the instrument and sell it. So after some times, it came to the notice of mommy that particular slave engine is missing. And she called all the pastors under her and demand for that. And one of the pastors said, oh, it's Pastor so that took it and sold it long ago. And they start begging. They beg and beg and beg, cry, beg and beg. And the woman said, no problem. Now, the pastor knew I'm a little bit closer to her, and they knew I'm coming that particular day to minister in their service. So the pastor came to me and said, please help us to talk to mommy. So I beg, prostrate. Mommy said, no. Tunde o mommy ne o le ba mi sọ̀rọ̀ ti. O ti tán, but ba sọ̀rọ̀ kó má ṣerú ẹ̀ mọ́ o. Mo ní, yes ma. You don't do that again. I said, no problem. So the service was going on. I was waiting for, mommy to go inside, and I follow her, then I mount the pulpit. Some gentlemen just called and he said, okay, yes, you can come up. I didn't know who called. These 3 men came in, not wearing any uniform. And he said, oh, you are welcome. Please sit down. Pastor Lagbaja. And when the pastor came, he said, man of God, God bless you. Men, gentlemen, please, handle him gently, please. He's a pastor, handle him gently. I was wondering what is wrong. Lo and behold, they are SAS officers. They took this guy away. I felt bad. Upon I begged this woman, you are not God. Things like that. And she discovered that I became very cold. And she said, Bankole kilo share, money nothing. Oh, because of that man. He said, yeah. I said, yes. He said, no. The the conduct and code of my profession as a legal practitioner, and the Constitution of Nigeria says it is a crime for you to cover a crime. I said, but we have begged you. He said, hey, you are not helping this man. It is a crime to cover a crime. And that is why there is a popular saying that says, when you see something, you must say something. So therefore, the code or conduct of this particular profession says that you don't cover up any crime, even if it is your own biological son. All right. Let me proceed a little bit forward. Why is a code of conduct necessary for chaplaincy profession? Why is this code of conduct necessary? An organization can think of adopting a code of conduct or any organization can think of adopting a code of conduct as the organization is making a commitment to self-regulation. Why do we need code of conduct? Why do we think it's necessary? Because so that we can have what we call self-regulation. Without code of conduct, we won't be able to control ourselves. Without code of conduct, we will not be able to organize ourselves. Without code of conduct, officers will do whatever they like and get out, and things will get out of hand. Leadership must put in writing the conduct they expect from their officers and the ethical principle they want to guide them. I repeat this again. The leadership must put in writing the conduct they expect from their officers and the ethical principles they want to guide them. A code of conduct is also a vital part of an organization's compliance and legal policies. For example, if an officer engaged in illegal activities while on duty, for example, a code of conduct will provide documentation showing that he or she has broken the organization policy. Don't forget, a code of conduct guides the actions and behaviors of an officer. The code of ethics guides the mindset and decision making of an officer. All right. By creating a code of conduct, you have defined how to act while on duty and when off duty. You understand? Let me say you this. Do you know there's a topic in military teaching, they call it military psychology. Do you know that whenever you put on uniform, there is how you talk different from when you talk when you are putting on suit as a pastor? I don't know if you have noticed it. When you are on your full combat uniform, there is how you walk different from how you walk on Sunday when you put on your suit as a parish pastor. There is a kind of tone you use when you're on your uniform, different, most especially a senior officer talking to a junior officer, different from the tone you use in church as a parish pastor. Let me balance it. If you use the tone you use to talk as your fellow chaplain or your junior chaplain, and you use it in church, it can affect the growth of your church. For example, maybe Brigadier Mike wants to talk to a junior officer. There's how you use a harsh command word that can bring that officers to an attention, which you cannot use in your parish as a parish pastor. You can't even use that to a worker. They might not come to church again. So therefore, code of conduct define how you act when you are on duty and when you are off duty. If your wife is a chaplain, and maybe you are also a chaplain by grace, and you are a senior officer to your wife, when you are on duty, there is how you talk to your wife, that you must not use such a tone when you are off duty as a husband in the house. I don't know if you get it. So code of conduct defines how you act when you are on duty. When you are off duty, you can be hungry and buy gala and minerals and begin to chew it on the street of redemption camp. But you cannot do that when you are on duty with your full uniform. No matter how hungry you are, discipline has to be put in place. So therefore, a code of conduct defines how you act when you are on duty and when you are not on duty. Also, it defines how you communicate both internally and externally. This code of conduct is very important. In fact, inside code of conduct, we have secrecy. The fact that you are a chaplain and you are married and your wife is not a chaplain officer does not mean that whatever they discuss in the RCI meeting, you must go and tell your wife at home. It is not ethical. That's why we need code of conduct. Code of conduct help officers to be successful while they are on operation. Let me give this example. November last year, during the final burial ceremony of my father, I bring in so many different officers, chaplains, officers, police, military personnel, local vigilante, even up to Amotekun, all sorts of security apparatus were there. But something distinguished the chaplain officers that are there. As a matter of fact, when we finished the occasion, people misconstrued them and people were saying they are naval officer, but they are chaplain officer. In fact, they were not looking at the badge. Maybe because of their dressing, maybe because of their conduct, maybe because of their manners, and maybe because of their actions. So therefore, code of conduct help officers to be successful even while on operation. Code of conduct gives value to the organizations. Code of conduct gives value to the organizations. Number 3, code of conduct attracts new members. Do you know without a standard code of conduct, there are people that will not join us. There are people that maybe they are too big or they are too principled to join anything that they see that discipline is not there. So code of conduct attracts new members. Having a code of conduct that reflects the organization's belief is a great starting point to let people know how organized we are. Before you can see that leaders get involved in RCI, it is a sign that there is a good conduct. Code of conduct is a good starting point or a great starting point to let people know how organized that we are. What a code of conduct should reflect. What are the things that a code of conduct should reflect? Now, these teachings will go beyond RCI. It will help you in your private or personal ministry or your ministerial career. It will help you in your private businesses and any institutions that you are opportune to head. A standard code of conduct must reflect the following. Number 1, a standard code of conduct must reflect the organization's value. A standard code of conduct must reflect the organization's value. This allows the organizations to show the ethics and belief that is most dear to them and how they can put this into action. This includes number 1, under number 1, A, organization ethics. B, social responsibilities. C, environmental responsibility. D, officers' rights. And the last one is commitment and responsibility of the officers, commitment and responsibility of the organization, which is RCI. I'll repeat again. The number 1 thing that a code of conduct must reflect is the value of the organization. The value. Number 2 things that the code of conduct must reflect. I'm saying this in case you are building a code of conduct. Number 2 is that it must reflect officers' behavior. A code of conduct must reflect officers' behaviors. Within a code of conduct, leadership must explain to all officers what is expected of them in terms of behaviors and performance. Leadership must explain to the officers what is expected to them in terms of behaviors and performance. This could be related to how they treat the people around them and communicate, or relate to how they perform their roles. Let me give us some examples. Number A, standard of professionalism. That is one of the things a code of conduct must reflect. The standard of professionalism. This standard of professionalism can reflect even in our dressing. I have been opportune to serve as a facilitator in so many chaplaincy conferences across the African continent. And sometimes when I see some chaplaincy, the way they dress, I don't talk, but I'll just smile in my heart. I don't talk, but I just smile in my heart. What am I trying to say? There must be a standard of professionalism. Some people will wear a full combat uniform and wear canvas. Some will wear a full combat uniform and wear some shoes that are very odd. It shows that there is no standard of professionalism. It's not reflecting in our dressing. There is a particular shoe that goes with the combat. There's a particular shoes that goes with the ceremonial, which you must not interchange. There is a reason, there is a particular dressing you dress that goes with the beret. There's a particular dressing you dress that goes with face cap, which you must not interchange. I have seen chaplains wearing a full ceremonial dress with a ceremonial layard and wear face cap, not P cap, face cap. I go many places, I see several things. Standard of professionalism. That is what code of conduct must reflect. Discrimination and sexual harassment policy must be reflected in a code of conduct. Discrimination. I have seen chaplains organizations that if you are a female gender, there are some positions or position of authority that you cannot claim. Maybe that's their own principles. I'm not condemning that anyway. But there must be a code of conduct on discrimination and sexual harassment policy. If not, you are dealing with human being, not angel. Number C, use of organization assets. Use of organization assets. Sometimes I go to some functions, people don't know when to wear uniform, where to wear uniform. Are you getting what I'm saying? When to wear uniform and where to wear your uniform to. We don't know. All this must reflect in the code of conduct. If not, people can even turn it to their to their daily whatever that they wear. I've seen even people wear uniform to prayer mountain now. One day I met a chaplain in a prayer mountain and I said, why do you wear this thing here? He said, no, because of police on the road. But now you are on the mountain. Are you here to have misunderstanding or argument with God? Wearing a full combat uniform to the prayer mountain. Code of conduct, very important. The use of social media, code of conduct. Let me give you this practical example that happens to me. I used to have a lady who happens to be one of my choir that I dismissed some times ago, just for one thing. Sometimes she posts some things, and after posting this rubbish, she will post church flyer again. Post some stupid thing. One day, the lady is just a teenager. One day it rains like this, and I was just looking through some status, and I saw her posting weather for two. And after that particular post, I saw the church flyer, which carried my picture. I felt embarrassed. What are you revealing to people? So I remove her from the church platform. And number two, I remove her from the choir department. This must be reflected in the code of. You have liberty to post whatever you can post. But don't forget, you carry an image. You represent an institution. And whatever you go, register a long way or goes a long way in people's mind. What we post must be checkmate. So the use of social media. Communication rules also must reflect in the code of conduct. You don't jump authority or jump protocol. It must be reviewed in our code of conduct. Disciplinary process. Disciplinary process is part of what must be reflected in the code of conduct. Number 3, the internal practice. Don't forget number 1, organization values. Number 2, officers' behaviors. Number 3, internal practice. This refers to defined rules related to day-to-day activities and practice that are easy to explain. This internal practice, code of conduct gives us how to relate and behave on our day-to-day activities. Number 1, such as our dress code, such as duty when you are on duty and when you are off duty, such as weather policy. For example, if you observe in the Nigerian police, there are some places you will not see women police there. You can see the male gender police on the highway doing checking point. You will never see a woman there. Why? In their code of conduct, such atmosphere or operation is not ideal for a female gender. Sometimes it might be raining so heavily, and there might be a need for chaplains to be on operation. We might decide not to send the female gender for such operation in such weather. Sometimes it might be a night duty. It all depends on the code of conduct the institution or the organization adopted. Then, break of policy. Also, it must reflect duties. Training guidelines must also be reflected there. Rules relating to time off through injuries and illness. What are the rules relating to injuries and illness when you are to be on duty? Attendance and punctuality. Also, internal practice code of conduct can also talk about the use of phone while on duty. To some organization, it is unethical. Some organizations' policy does not has anything to do with it. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Some organization can say you are not permitted to eat or chewing anything while you are on duty. Most especially when you are in the surveillance department or undercover department or intelligence department. It is very unethical. You are in undercover department, you chew things anyhow. It is unethical when you are even when you belong to undercover department or intelligence department, they see you holding bottled waters or Coke or Pepsi here and there while on duty. You get what I'm trying to say? Sometimes you discover that most people who are in who belongs to undercover department or intelligence department, you don't see their eyeball. Most especially, they are always on black glasses. Not that they have any eyes problem, but sometimes when you are doing surveillance, I can be looking at this my daddy in front. I'm looking at you straight, but this is what I am covering. So I don't want whoever that is looking at me to see where my attention is. That's one of the purpose. Okay. Now, the fourth one is external practice. Let me come over again. The first thing that code of conduct must reflect is the value of the organization. The second one is the officer's behaviors. The third one is the internal practice. The fourth one is the external practice. Internal is within us. External is outside. A code of conduct should define the expectation for officers when dealing with external parties. For example, this could be in relation to confidential organization materials or a level of courtesy and respect when dealing with external party. Somebody asked me a question many years ago. The person has once lived so well in overseas. He said he observed a difference in manners of Nigerian police and British police. So sometimes when the British police stop you, they say, please park. Please wind down. Please, can I see your driver's license? Please open your boot. He said, but Nigerian police say, hey, park. The difference is what? Conduct. The difference is conduct. How we relate to people who are external party. Now let me go into professional ethics of modern chaplain. Professional ethics of modern chaplain. Professional ethics are principles that governs the behaviors of a chaplain in the chaplaincy profession. I repeat again, professional ethics are principles that governs the behaviors of a chaplain in the chaplaincy profession. Like values, professional ethics provide rules on how a chaplain should act towards other people. You will observe that when somebody misbehaves, they will say he doesn't have ethics. So also, professional ethics stipulates how a chaplain should behave to other people. Professional ethics encompass the personal and corporate standard of behaviors expected from chaplain personnel. It encompasses the personal and corporate standard of behaviors expected from chaplain personnel. Professional ethics is a guideline for people working in a particular profession that tells them what they're supposed to do and what they are not supposed to do. Moral principles that governs a person's behaviors or the conducting of our activities. Professional ethics is the branch of knowledge that deals with moral principles. A branch of knowledge that deals with moral principles. Ethics examine the rational justification of our moral judgment. It studies what is morally right or wrong. Ethics studies what is morally right or wrong. Ethics study what is just and what is unjust. In a broader sense, ethics reflect on human beings and their interaction with the nature and with other humans. Now, why is a code of ethics important? A professional code of ethics is designed to ensure that chaplains are behaving in a manner that is socially acceptable and respectable to one another. A professional code of ethics is designed to ensure that chaplains are behaving in a manner that is socially acceptable and respectful to one another. It establishes the rules for behaviors and send message to every chaplain that universal compliance is expected. It also provides the groundwork for a preemptive warning if personnel break the code. One of the things that ethics does is that they send the warnings to personnel what will happen to them or the disciplinary action they will be subjected to should in case they break the code. A code of ethics can be valuable not just internally as a professional guide for chaplain personnel, but also externally as a statement of value and commitment to the chaplaincy profession. Now, in talking about code of ethics, there are so many code of ethics. Number one, code of ethics like policy. Number one is confidential and privacy policy. The ethics of chaplaincy profession demand confidentiality and privacy. May I say this? In my little years of existence and in my little years of ministry, I hear so many things a lot. I hear so many things a lot. Then if you don't learn secrecy and or privacy and confidentiality, then you put your profession and your life at risk. So the first policy which reviews the ethics of this profession is confidentiality and privacy policy. Confidentiality and privacy policy. Number 2, law-abiding policy. The ethics of chaplaincy profession demands that nobody is above the law. Nobody is above the law. The purpose of the uniform is not to harass, it's not to intimidate, it's not to threaten, but to carry out your duty. So therefore, the law-abiding policy must be put in place. The fact that you are a chaplain does not give you a license to drive without a driver's license or a valid driver's license. A lot of people do it. Maybe so many other chaplaincy organizations. They know that their vehicle particulars is not up to date. They will go and wear uniform so that they might not be stopped or harassed by any police personnel. It is unethical. Very, very unethical. Number 3, caring and consideration policy. Don't forget, every chaplaincy must have the spirit of humanity in them. So therefore, consideration and caring policy is part of the ethics of a chaplain. As a chaplain, you don't have a life of your own. You live for the people. You are a man of the people because you are serving people in need. Number 4, quality service delivery policy. That must be your watchword. Quality service delivery policy. The ethics of this chaplaincy profession demands that you must satisfy those people in need. I used to clamor for something. The chaplaincy profession is still like a greener pastures that people still need to explore. Imagine the numbers of refugee camps that we have in Nigeria. Imagine the numbers of IDPC camps that we have in Nigeria. There is no record of one chaplain serving any IDPC camp. No record in history till date. Then you will tell me, you can agree with me that we have work to do. Caring and consideration policy. 4, quality service delivery policy. Number 5, integrity policy. The ethics of chaplaincy profession demands that you must be a man of integrity. Don't compromise your integrity for anything. Don't compromise it for anything. Don't compromise your integrity for your integrity must matter to you. Your integrity must matter a lot to you. Number 6, non-partiality policy. Non-partiality policy. No unfair treatment or discrimination to anybody on the basis of gender, race, religious status, and nationality. As a chaplain, listen, God forbid there is a disaster that happens that demands that chaplains should go on rescue operation. You will not begin to ask those people, are you Christian or Muslim, so that I know whether to rescue you or not. In as much as they are human beings, you render your service to them. That is what the ethics of the profession demand. As a matter of fact, God forbid, if let's say there is an accident on this highway, and as a chaplain, maybe you are going on the same way and you stop to assist the people, you will not ask them, are you RCI member, RCCG member, or maybe you are CAC member, and say maybe because you are not RCCG member, I'm not going to help you. You render your help because of who you are and because of the spirit of humanity that is in you. Number 7 policy is communication policy. The ethics of this profession demands that you as a chaplain personnel must know how to communicate effectively, that the people you are communicating to will understand you. As a matter of fact, you need to hear more than one language. Very important. Very, very important. It's what the ethics of the professions demands. As I'm preparing to round up soonest, something happens. We linked up in my organization with an organization in Oman. This organization in Oman are into rescuing of trapped Africans who are being brought to Oman for maybe sex as a sex slaves or maybe to work as a maid. Many of them have been trapped down there. So the organization will rescue them from their masters. We arrange for their flights, arrange for their documents for them to return back to their country. So they partner with us. Our own work, as for the fact that we are working with NAPTIP, is to go and receive them at the airport, because from experience, many of them will land in Nigeria and run away and not return back to their family, maybe because of shame and so many other things. So we are to receive them from the airport, provide a lot of counseling for them, rehabilitate them, and migrate them back to their family in conjunction with NAPTIP. Now, we have failed so many times on this operation before because we cannot speak Hausa language. And many of those people are Hausa people. Many of them. In fact, some of them will return back to the country with pregnancy that they cannot even identify who owns the pregnancy. The people over there are so stubborn that in the family, anybody can just sleep with them because they are made. So they cannot even identify. So because of the shame, some of them have families, children, and husband here. They cannot return back to their home. So we have not been so effective in this because we cannot speak their language. Sometimes we have to get an interpreter, but I observe that we are not able to do justice like when we can speak that language. But for some of them that are Yoruba, forget it. We will dig it down because I speak Yoruba and I'm a Yoruba person. So therefore, as a chaplain personnel, it is good and ethical for you to learn how to speak other languages. Okay, number 8, good moral conduct policy. A good moral conduct policy. There are some things that they must not hear that you as a chaplain do. Therefore, a good moral conduct must be your watchword. Now, let me go to professional conduct. I have talked about the code of ethics. Professional conduct. What are the professional conducts of a chaplain? And that's where I will end my lecture. Number 1, a chaplain must refrain from any form of crime or criminal act. As a chaplain, you must refrain from any form of crime or criminal act. Any form of crime or criminal act. Number 2, you must deliver your duty or service with fairness. Deliver your duty or service with fairness. Number 3, charge fair and reasonable. I will not go into this. I prepare these lectures like I'm talking to somebody who takes chaplaincy as a profession or as a means of livelihood. If you have worked as a chaplain in other countries, or maybe within, or maybe you are employed as a chaplain somewhere, then this one talks to you. You must charge fair and reasonable. You must charge fair and reasonable. Number 4, arrange for payment in a professional and judicious manner. This still goes to people who are professional chaplains, who use chaplains as a means of livelihood. You arrange for your payment in a professional and judicious manner. Number 5, refrain from any harassment before, during, and after service delivery. Refrain from any kind of harassment. Number 6, render pro bono service in a fair and reasonable manner. Now, let me explain this. The word pro bono is a legal term when you render a free service. Maybe you have a problem and you need a legal service, you don't have money, and a legal practitioner decided on his own to stand or appear for you in court without collecting money from you. That means he rendered the service on pro bono. Even as a chaplain, you can do that. Let me explain how. Sometimes a situation or a case might be brought to your notice that needs you, maybe charging the people in court to court or what have you. If the people don't have name, I have said this example over and over again of a teenager or a minor that was raped, and people in the neighborhood tells the mother, the widow, that why can't you go to the police station? And when the woman gets to the police station, the man who committed the crime is rich, staying in the house alone, no wife, no children, he's staying in the whole house alone, except security. So his house is beside their own house. Now, the woman get to the police station, they said, you will give us money for biro. They said 2,000 to make an entry. And because the woman doesn't have 2,000, she returned back home with her daughter. So when the man, it comes to the notice of the man that some people have told the woman to go to the police station, the man went after the woman. And when he get there, I don't know what they do, maybe give money to the police or what have you. And the police came, arrested the woman and the mother, beat them like hell, locked them up. So they begin to beg the man again. And they said they must write an undertaking that they lied, conspire to lie against the man. Now, you as a chaplain, when you hear such occasion, you can take it up. They don't have money. You can render service or pro bono to ensure that justice is done. Number 7, provide services regardless of race, color, nationality, origin, gender, religion, age, disability, sexual orientations, or any other factors. You render service regardless of who they are, what they are. Number 8, refrain from using confidential information of someone for public purposes. Refrain from using confidential information of someone for public purposes. Number 9, assist and encourage colleagues when appropriate or necessary. I have a quote that says, it takes one person to win a medal, but it takes a team to win championship. As a chaplain, you must have this spirit of unity to assist your fellow chaplains in the line of duty. Number 10, approach colleague privately to discuss and resolve breaches of ethical or professional conduct through standard conflict resolution method. You must not be found fighting with your fellow colleagues. There's how you can approach the person privately, and resolve breaches of ethical or professional conduct through standard conflict resolution method. Now, also, you can also file for grievances only after such attempts have been unsuccessful. Maybe you have approached the person privately and you discover it's not the action is not successful. Lastly, essential elements of professional behaviors includes 1, knowledge and skill about the field. Essential elements of professional behaviors. Essential elements of professional behaviors. What does it include? Number 1, it includes that you must have knowledge and skill about the field. It includes that you must have knowledge and skill in the field of chaplaincy. That is the only element that can make you to have these professional behaviors. Number 2, communication and relationship skill. You need it. Communicate and relate with your fellow colleagues. We learn from each other every day. Nobody is an island of knowledge. Number 3, work ethics. For you to develop a standard professional behaviors, you must have a work ethics. Number 4, you must have professional ethics. Professional ethics. In conclusion, ethics and conduct is the pillar of any profession because it speaks volume about the profession. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. God bless RCI. And God bless chaplaincy profession. At this junction, I will recess a little bit to entertain questions regarding the topics, the ethics and conduct of chaplaincy profession. Thank you.
All right. Can we appreciate our facilitator once again? Labaka. Atama. Thank you very much, sir. That was Dr. Babatunde Bankole Olanrewaju on chaplaincy, ethics, and conduct. Because of time, we'll take just 3 questions. Just 3. If I see 3 hands, I'll quickly recognize them so that we don't have questions leading to questions. Do you have any questions? 3, 1. Please, sir. 1. Do you have any other question from any? 2. Do we have any other question? Any other person who has a question? Please, can you just step out? Ask your question. Doctor, sir, I'm sure you are ready for the questions. Please just step out, ask your question, and then
Go ahead. Sir. Standing before you is Lieutenant Ogadema Micah. Sir, during the course of your teaching, you make mention of one of your outlines of the ethics of the chaplain, and you gave an instance of wearing a combat or putting on our regalia and mount maybe a spiritual office like the altar or the prayer house or the mountain as being unethical. Sir, I would like to know when and how can those wares be very useful to us, and what are the limits we ought to make use of them, and in what extent we shouldn't trespass in those different areas. Thank you very much, sir.
sorry, sir, do you want to take the 2 questions together or you want to answer one after the other? All right, sir.
Thank you for the question. Now, let me throw this to us. In Bible college, they teach us about homiletics. And one of the things that homiletic does or teaches us is that your dressing must go alongside with what you want to preach. For example, if they are doing a youth program, maybe a sport, like this afternoon we have a sports event, you now invite somebody to talk to the people, and the person now dressed in a native dress, not even native dress, an agbada. How does that correlate with sports? Whatever he's preaching, his dressing is saying something else. Now, it is possible for you to wear your uniform to the pulpit. 1, it reveals to the congregation who you are. But it still talks about the occasion. For example, you are invited as a pastor to preach in a wedding occasion, you wear your uniform there. I don't know how it correlates. I might not go too deep into that. It depends on the leadership, what the leadership of RCI set as a rules and conduct. Do you get what I'm saying? Because sometimes I used to say this: if we don't control the use of uniform, people will abuse it. That's the truth. So that question will be best answered by the code of conduct set by the RCI leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Can we take your question?
Thank you very much, sir, for your brilliant presentation. Now, one thing got me worried in the presentation you made when you made reference to some chaplaincies that have untoward attitude, appearance, and what not. We know that in the global space, even groundnut sellers have standard operating procedures, which they do through association. Is there anything going on in the chaplaincy movement to regulate the chaplaincy in Nigeria, for example, where you will have minimum irreducible level of ethical standard so that you won't have this bastardization that you pointed at? And if there is none, what are some of you who are ahead doing about it? Thank you.
Yes, sir. You have the mic, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said the other time, I will not go too deep into answering the question, but I will paraphrase it to satisfy your question. Yes, there is a body, but you know, the RCI is working with many agencies and bodies. And one good thing I want to say is, I'm not saying this to flatter. The RCI have been well conducted, that we have not heard issues that has to do with any officers from RCI. Then that shows that there is a good standard and conduct in RCI. Some time ago, an officer was arrested along Semi-Border wearing chaplaincy uniform, that white ceremony, to go and drive a car, a Tokumbo car from Cotonou without a custom paper. So this still boils down on the conduct and ethics. When an organization don't have a conduct, believe you me, there will be problem. There will be problem. Because what the conduct does is that it guides the behaviors and actions of the organization, the officers, telling them what they should do and what they are not to do. I'll give you one other example. One of my officers one day called me around 10:30. He said, "Sir, I was arrested." I said, "Where?" He said, "Jack on the gate." "What do you do?" He said, "The police arrest me that I'm driving a bike." I said, "But you are not a bike driver. Where do you see bright?" He said, "I want to go and carry somebody that came late from north somewhere." Okay, give the phone to the policeman. I talked to the policeman in a polite way, and he said, "No problem, I'm releasing him because of you." So the police released him. Around 12 o'clock, I'm in church for a vigil. He called again that same night and said, "Sir, they arrest me." I said, "Where?" He said, "Egbe bus stop." Again, another jurisdiction. "What are you doing there by this time?" He said he's just coming from where he went to with the same bike. And in the process of arresting him, he was dragging with the police, and mistakenly one of the uniform of one of the buttons in the police uniform fell off. And he just joined us. You know, some people, this thing is on their head, you know. And I said, "Okay, give the phone to the policeman." He gave the phone to the police. The police explained to me. He said he's saying he's an officer, but I'm asking him where is his ID card. He cannot produce. I said, you know one thing. Where is your station? He said, Ikotu. I said, please go and lock him. So the second day, the police called me in the morning. He said, sir, I am on night duty and this is morning. I'm going. I will hand over. I said, hand over to whoever you hand over. I'm not coming there until evening. Let him learn. Yoruba used to say, let him learn. It's as simple as that. So there is a body regulating, which RCI, I'm sure they are aware of. You understand what I'm saying? But apart from anybody, the organization must be able to regulate and conduct the behaviors of their officers. That's why I said a code of conduct reflects 4 things. And number 3 is the internal practice. Once there is a strong code of conduct that regulates the internal practice of officers, they will not go outside and disgrace the body. I don't know if I answered your question. So I'm not here to talk about anybody or any organization. That's why I have to dodge some certain thing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. We can just go ahead and appreciate Dr. Babatunde again. God bless you richly, sir. I hope that answers the question. And I sincerely hope that we've taken some very good lessons from the discussion on chaplaincy ethics and conduct as delivered by Dr. Babatunde Bankole. We appreciate you, sir. The Lord bless you in Jesus' name. Next, we'll be talking on national development and the Redemption Chaplaincy International. National Development Chaplaincy International. I would like to humbly invite the next speaker in the person of Pastor Josiah Akitola Bolarewa to the podium. But before he comes, Pastor Josiah Akitola Bolarewa was born in the early hours of Saturday, the 12th of April, 1958, to the family of Pa Gabriel Ekaola and Madam Alice Moyosike Bolarewa of Asa Compound, Agbeni, in the then Ibadan Municipal Government, now Ibadan Southwest Local Government Area of Ibadan, in the then Western region of Nigeria, now Oyo State of Nigeria. Pastor Bolarewa attended St. Philip's Anglican Primary School, Ayetoro, in Ile-Ife, and he completed his elementary education in the year 1970. He attended Lagos State College of Education. He studied English and Religious Studies and graduated with the NCE in 1984. He has taught English and CRK in 2 Lagos public schools between 1985 and 88. And then he answered the call into Christian ministry in 1989. He's a poet and a playwright. And one of his plays, The Wicker Vessel, was adopted by the Lagos State Schools Theatrical Troupe to promote the PET project, Educate Women for Development, which was the brainchild of the then First Lady of Nigeria, late Miriam Babangida, in Lagos State Schools in 1985. Pastor Bolarewa also holds a bachelor's degree in education in guidance and counseling, / religious studies. He has a master's degree and a PhD degree in systematic theology from the prestigious Premier University of Ibadan in 1994, 98, and 2004, respectively. He was the 4th principal and 1st provost of the Redeemed Christian Bible College. That's the Ministerial Training Institution of the RCCG. Presently, he is the Assistant Continental Overseer, Research and Development of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. He's also the secretary of the registered trustees of the Redeemed Christian Bible College, the vice chairman of the board of governors, and chairman the academic board of Redeemers International Leadership Academy in Ikoyi, Lagos. He holds the chair of the board of governors of Christ the Redeemers College, Christ Hill, Shagamu, Ogun State. He is a member of Faculty of Systematic Theology, Redeemed Christian Bible College, RCCG North America Bible College and Seminary in Texas, USA, and Christ the Redeemer College, London, in the United Kingdom. Pastor Bolarewa is happily married with male and female children to Pastor Mrs. Mary Olukemi Bolarewa, with whom he lives at Lagos Ibadan Expressway, that's inside the camp. He has a number of academic works to his credit. God determines it too. Academic success, God determines it too. The doctrines and the acts of the Holy Spirit, marriage, a Christian definition, to mention a few. Is an officer with the RCI, a major general, by the way. Gentlemen, join me to welcome Major General Bolarewa to the podium. You're welcome, sir. Atama, Labaka, Labaka. You're welcome, sir.
Let somebody shout hallelujah. Let somebody shout hallelujah. Because of our time, I want to stand and I want to talk on the existing protocol laid by our beloved apostle, the one who spoke before me. And I want to seize this opportunity to say thank you on behalf of the RCI for a well-taught presentation. It will go a long way to help us. And I know that we have taken note of all those challenges that the paper presented to us. But for time, I would have taken some 5-10 minutes to do a kind of remarks on what the paper that was just presented to us. But I must mention this by virtue of my position in RCI, that I took note of many things, but I will give you one or two. Serious-minded people will not join RCI if there is no code of conduct, or if our code of conduct is not religiously observed. I took note of that. We have serious-minded people in the Redeemed Christian Church of God. They love our operation, but God forbid that in discipline we make them to say, no, I don't want to belong. We must take note of this. It struck me hard when he was mentioning some of these things. We must present ourselves as serious-minded people. Now, because of our time, the day is far spent, coupled with the showers of blessing. The task before me is to talk on the national development, the role of Redemption Chaplaincy International. In other words, development at the national level is inevitable, is desirable. The question is, what should be the role of RCI The work has been simplified for me by our pastor that spoke before me. So I will not dwell so much or too much on what Chaplaincy International is all about. I'll just mention briefly. It is very important for us to know that chaplaincy, RCI in particular, has a role to play in nation building. So our task in this paper is to examine the role of Redemption Chaplaincy International in nation building. This, of course, is one of the major reasons for establishing chaplaincy in general and Redemption Fourth Chapter of Chaplaincy in particular. So in this brief paper, we are going to examine the origin of chaplaincy. I will say that in passing because justice has been done to it internationally. The purpose or the essence of chaplaincy, how chaplaincy in general and RCI in particular can help in nation building. Suffice to say that chaplain organization requires empathy and the ability to minister to individuals from many backgrounds and beliefs without compromise. He said it. Going through the history of chaplaincy, we have the primitive or the traditional chaplaincy, we have the modern or professional chaplaincy. What is the role of Chaplaincy International in the world at large? We talk of reaching out with spiritual care to a wide range of individuals, wide range of disciplines and organizations. We talk of the prison, we talk of environmental management services, we talk of law enforcement agencies, and so on and so forth. He said it, and I believe you have taken note. Chaplaincy encompasses all areas of human endeavors. It is interesting, however, to note that chaplaincy is as old as when human beings got to know that they are existing. I try to look at the origin of Chaplaincy International and stakeholders. Who are the chaplains? Don't forget, we are looking at chaplaincy as nation builders. But who are the chaplains? A chaplain originally is a priest or a minister who had charge of chapel, now an ordained minister or member of the clergy who is assigned to a special ministry, traditionally speaking. Let me pause a little. The soft copy of this paper has been posted to our platform and it will be transferred or forwarded to all of us that are, because I could not afford to get everybody to have a copy of this. So the soft copy will be made available because it is your paper. Take note of that and ensure you have a copy before the end of tomorrow because it's already on our platform. It's interesting to look at the origin of chaplaincy and we look at one of the heroes of faith so called because of his life of care and sharing by the name St. Martin's, who have his cloak in two. In the midst of cold weather, snow, half of his coat was given to a beggar who was dying of cold in the snow. And because of this virtuous, the exhibition of virtue, that cloak of his, the half of his cloak, became monumental, became a relic that people cherish in memory of St. Martin. And we are told in history that those who were in the custody, those who are keeping the custody of this cloak, were eventually called chaplains, because they imbibed the virtue of St. Martin's, and they also transferred the virtue to other people that were following them. I will just read an excerpt to you to whet your appetite so that you may be proud of being a chaplain officer. And I quote from Sulpius Severus in about 480. Accordingly, at a certain period when he had nothing except his arms, a soldier for that matter, and a simple military dress, in the middle of winter, a winter which had shown itself more severe than ordinary, so that the extreme cold was proving fatal to many, he happened to meet at the gate of the city of Amiens a poor man destitute of clothing. He was entreating those that passed by to have compassion upon him. But all passed the wretched man without notice. When Martin, the man full of God, recognized that a being to whom others showed no pity was, in that respect, left to him. Yet, what should he do? He had nothing except the cloak in which he was clad, for he had already parted with the rest of his garments for similar purposes. Take note, the only one that remained on him. Taking therefore his sword, with which he was girt, he divided his cloak into two equal parts, and gave one part to the poor man, while he again clothed himself with the remainder. Upon this, some of the bystanders laughed, because he was now an unsightly object, and stood out as but partly grown deeply because, partly dressed rather. Many, however, who were of sounder understanding, groaned deeply because they themselves had done nothing similar. They especially felt this because, being possessed of more than Martin, they could have clothed the poor man without reducing themselves to nakedness. A man with one cloak reduced himself to have nudity, so that a poor beggar may not die in the cold. That is the spirit of chaplaincy for you. And as I told you, the custodian followed the same principle of Martin. This is why Wikipedia defines a chaplain as, and I quote, traditionally a cleric such as minister, priest, pastor, rabbi, imam, and whatever, or a lay representative of a religious tradition attached to a secular institution such as hospital, prison, military unit, intelligence agency, embassy, school, labor union, business, police department, fire department, university, sports club, or a private chapel. That has been said. A chaplain performs basically the same function in most armed forces. A chaplain in the United States military, for example, must furnish or arrange for religious services and administration, advise his commander and fellow staff officers on matters pertaining to religion and morality that have been said by my predecessor, administer a comprehensive program of religious education, serve as counselor and friend to the personnel of the command, and conduct instruction classes in the moral guidance program of his service. End of quote. In that paper, you will find what I said concerning the role of chaplaincy in its originality. Among the greatest aspects of chaplain is that the office is a high order vocation, never a first order vocation. That is, the chaplain is a person who sought out credentials in a faith group and served to some extent and for time in that faith group, proud to assuming the role of chaplain. This is very true of us in Redemption Chaplaincy International. You can't just be coming. I pray that we will be able to maintain this standard. You can't just come in to be a chaplain officer if you have not passed through the believers class, the workers in training. You become a worker. That is what we mean by this. The first order, you be a Christian. I'm talking about RCI now because that is the responsibility given to me. What should be our role as RCI in nation building? So I don't want to watch over other people's flock in this paper, but over the flock that Lord has put in our charge. So, and I'm so happy in the course of my study, preparing this paper, that we are towing the line of the primitive chaplaincy with elements of modern trends, as we shall shortly see before I end my presentation. So, what we are saying in essence is this. Only after a period of time and training does the minister move into the second order vocation and field of service, which is chaplaincy. First and foremost, you must be well grounded in the service of the Lord, because being a chaplain officer is not an end of its own, but a means to an end. That is, so that you can graduate, you can go to the next level of service within the fold. So if you go by all this, I'm trying to watch my time because I know many of you are tired. But in the light of these few explanations, we can conclude that a chaplain officer could be seen as a clergyman in his own right, who conducts religious service, attached to, in charge of a chapel, in a parish, in a department. And generally speaking, to that was in the olden days when chaplaincy was coming up, colleges, embassies, and what have you. And I saw something that struck me also here. Even to serve in prison and cemetery, we have memorial gardens. It was muted that we could be in charge of our memorial garden here, but we have not been able to make headway. If we had made headway, I would have been happier, because it's part of what chaplains did in the past and we must do. W.J. Shells, in his review of the book titled The Sword of the Lord, Military Chaplain from the 1st to the 21st Century, edited by Doris Berger, traces the history of chaplaincy to the period when Aaron and Hur offered support to Moses in the struggle against the Amalekites, while Joshua was on the battlefront, according to him. And I quote, "It is not until the 5th century that Christian clerics accompanied soldiers into battle as comforters rather than exhorters. This was to change radically with the development of just war theory, so that in the Middle Ages, chaplains were used to justify the cause and boost the morale of participants, often in high developed quasi-liturgical ways, which were best expressed in those bloody endeavors under the cross, the crusades. Time will fail me to tell you about the crusades, but then I will say this in 1 minute. When the jihadists took over Jerusalem and some other historical sites of the Christian antiquity, it was Pope Urban who declared war against these people. And when people were reluctant, he gave a motivating reward. In those days, the Catholicism was in vogue. That instead of paying penance, if you can go to Jerusalem and serve as chaplains to comfort the soldiers of the cross, you wouldn't need to pay penance for forgiveness of sin. That justification of that is for another day, not for this night. But the point we are raising here is that we are trying to trace the history of chaplains, both the good, the bad, and the ugly. Tracing what can be regarded as one of the early developmental stages of chaplaincy, Bolarinwa in 2018 gives a brief narrative of the genesis of Christian crusades in his book titled World Religions, Missionary Strategies, and the Quest for Global Peace, where he writes, and I quote, "Crusades, in the original understanding of its meaning, may not be a good word for Christian calling, though it was staged for many reasons, including suppressing paganism and heresy, the maintenance of orderliness in the medieval church, but also, unfortunately, for territorial advantage. The Christian Crusades were a series of religious wars approved by the Latin Church in the medieval period. It is the common assumption that the Crusades were meant to recover the Holy Land from Islamic rule. That is why I cherish what our apostle described as modern chaplaincy, which has deviated from the primitive or what we call the traditional chaplaincy. Now, what is traditional chaplaincy? He has said it, I promise you that I won't go into details, but you have it in the paper. Suffice to say that the first category of traditional chaplains continues the traditional and rather long history of sectarian services in specialized settings. We have 3 stages. We have the pure traditional primitive, we have the reorganized traditional, which also talks about specialized settings. But within the faith, it is the modern chaplaincy that became liberal. Now, and it is called professional chaplaincy. Professional chaplains, which is the second category of professional chaplains, includes all of the activities and functions of the first, but the uniqueness of the specialized setting of the professional chaplains requires a broader role, especially in public and governmental service. This is where we can focus our attention as far as the role of chaplaincy in nation building. Our apostle says something. Today, if RCI wants to really play the role of nation building, We must be more involved. He put forth a challenge, and I was ashamed of myself that it is on record that no presence of chaplaincy in IDP, internally displaced people. Chaplains were not ministering in those IDP, which would have been a very good opportunity for us. I think I will have to search to confirm the truth of that matter, that chaplaincy has been left out of ministering to the IDP, whereas I have seen in our reports how RCCG have been ministering in food and raiment in IDP, but chaplaincy has not been ministering. I will have to confirm that. But don't forget what we are talking about. We are talking about nation building, and that is one of them. Now, in the 20th century, we have a kind of organized traditional chaplain. It has been said that we have got an improvement. The 20th century professional chaplain does not discriminate against anyone because of race, creed, gender, or religion. Without renegating their own belief system, they facilitate the faith of all in the specialized setting. Ever available to expand his or her own faith, at times taking the initiative, the prime directive, the chief modus operandi, the most significant operating doctrine of the truly professional 20th century chaplain is that of a deep-seated and firm respect for religious freedom and freedom of conscience. This is a food for thought, particularly in Nigeria. The way we discuss politics, ethnicity, and tribal what have you, I wonder if we are ready, if we are convinced and persuaded that we can see people of other faith in distress and we will volunteer to help them. I wonder, particularly in the present dispensation, chaplaincy must do a rethink. We must go back to the drawing board and see whether we worth the sort of who we are and our calling. We must begin to look at chaplaincy from the point of view of what is operating in the 21st century. The chaplain provides a ministry of presence in times of grief and tragic loss. Are we broad-minded enough to do that? The chaplain steps outside the church wall to minister to people during their darkest moments. Are we ready to do that? The chaplain is a ministry that reaches into a person's heart and share their life journey, bringing them joy and hope and letting them know they matter. That they matter to us. We want to let them know that before they are this or that, they are human beings first. I like the way St. Luke puts the genealogy of the world, apart from that of Matthew. Matthew traced the genealogy of his own genealogy to Abraham and he stopped. But Luke traced the genealogy of Jesus Christ to Adam. We are first and foremost children of Adam down the ages. And that should be the spirit of chaplaincy. And our anthem affirms that we are committed to sharing and to caring. And I tell you, when we do, we will build our nation. There will be unity. It is very, very important that we have this as chaplains. I read a small novel when I was teaching literature in secondary school, Without a Silver Spoon. Some of you must have read it. There are things we can do as chaplains that can win people to the body of Christ without coercion, through our goodwill, like St. Martin. 2 hire killers were sent to kill a boy in a village that was set in the eastern part of Nigeria. Because this boy have been taught to share and to care, a typical Igbo boy, the hire killers came to the homestead of the father. They met their target. He rushed in, brought a clean plate with kola nuts, and he broke the kola nuts with cups of water and said, "Brothers, please have kola nuts and take this water." And they looked at each other and said, "Oh, this boy is too good to be killed." They turned their back. They didn't kill the boy. Our good intention, the Spirit of Christ, will make us fulfill our calling as chaplains. And by so doing, we will build our nation. We will work our sword. I also mentioned the emergence of Redemption Chaplaincy International, because in my mother tongue, some of us are in chaplaincy, but we don't even know the genesis of it. I have put it here, just in 3 paragraphs. We thank the Almighty God for the life of our late General Boyo, who was trained outside RCI, but he brought what he learned out there into the system. To the glory of God, Daddy Adeboye approved of the establishment of Chaplaincy RCI, and I thank God for the organizers of this particular week, the maiden edition of it, honoring him with a marathon race. The Almighty God will always preserve our memories in Jesus' name. National development, the role of RCI, the role of chaplaincy, RCI, of RCCG in perspective. Don't worry, I will soon. I've made the paper available so you can go through it. Having discussed the emergence of chaplaincy in church history, in particular in other faith-based organizations and in secular environment in general, let us look and discuss briefly the role of chaplaincy in national building or national development. First and foremost, we must remind ourselves of our discussion on the emergence of chaplaincy as a helping, caring, and aiding organization. It is interesting to know that right from the remote past origin of chaplaincy, the caring and helping roles of chaplaincy are both physical and spiritual, typologically speaking. I say typologically speaking because we have the types of chaplain. Those of you who studies theology, you know what I'm talking about. We have the types of chaplains even in the Old Testament, Aaron and Hur. They were types of chaplains. They headed the spiritual assignment of Moses, as RCA must aid the spiritual assignment of Papa Adeboye and all our elders. And it also aided the victory of Joshua when he was fighting against the Amalekites, according to Exodus chapter 17, 10 to 13. You can see, but for that victory, I wonder if Israel as a nation will emerge, because the Amalekites will have exterminated the entire race in that fierce battle. You know the story. When you get home, you will read that passage. It's even in your paper. I've extracted it and put it there. In the process of nation building, spiritual hindrances must be removed. It takes spiritual soldiers to do so. Aaron, Hur, and Joshua were types of chaplains. Number two, it is a statement of fact that a nation in crisis, distress, can never make progress. Chaplains are agents of peace. Is that not true? If we water our salt. Number three, one of the latest developments in chaplaincy is the ecumenical spirit, which this organization engenders. Chaplaincy preaches the gospel of unity in diversity. So, in a diversified society like Nigeria, with many ethnic groups, multi-religious faith base, even within each of the religious organization, unique services of chaplaincy are inevitable for nation building. And I want you to note what we said about the 20th century development of chaplaincy. And I quote for your emphasis as I begin to round up. The 20th century professional chaplain does not discriminate against anyone because of race, creed, gender, or religion. Without negating their own belief system, they facilitate the faith of all in the specialized setting. Ever available to expand his or her own faith, take note of that. At times, taking the initiative, the prime directive, the chief modus operandi, the most significant operating doctrine of the truly professional 20th century chaplain is that of a deep-seated and firm respect for religious freedom and freedom of conscience. Maybe I'm comfortable with these excerpts because of my background as a theologian. That is why many Pentecostals hate theologians, because theologians are too liberal to be liked by Pentecostals. But whether you believe it or not, I'm a Pentecostal by excellence. I can't live without being a Pentecostal. But then, good enough for me, as a theologian, I'm also a chaplain officer. And this is the doctrine of chaplaincy, particularly modern chaplaincy. For us to build a nation, we must possess ecumenical spirit. In that paper, when you take time to read, you will see how I try to look at the problem that emanated from traditional chaplaincy during the Reformation. It used to be fighting from outside. Fighting the enemy from outside. During the Reformation, when the Reformers and Catholicism were fighting, chaplaincy was divided. That dog began to eat dog. Then we began to have experience of enemy from within. But the World War taught us the lesson. The First World War brought chaplaincy back to its feet, to its original intent, that you share, you care, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, and whatever. By this, we will be our the children of our Father in heaven, who reign upon the wicked, who reign upon the good. That is chaplaincy for you. You will see in the paper too the excerpt from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, 9 to 12, where I try to look at the development of a nation from the point of view of the New Testament, what we must do. And I quote just verse 1, but as touching brotherly love, ye need not that I write to you, for ye yourself are taught of God to love one another. And indeed, ye do it toward all the brethren which are in all Macedonia. But we beseech you, brethren, that ye increase more and more. Go beyond, brethren. Jesus said, and I quote, if you greet those who greet you, what credit have you? Even the Gentiles do the same thing. Beloved, I know you are tired. I'm not comfortable with people sleeping when I'm teaching. So let me conclude. Maybe that one way arouse your interest. The next 3 minutes, I'm done with this. But let me affirm that chaplaincy fosters national development when properly organized and in turns transmit to nation building. So I conclude by saying that the Redemption Chaplaincy International can be an agency of national development when properly administered, when the code of conduct is strictly adhered to because of its focus on maintenance of law and order, caring and sharing. Agbófinró ni chaplains, a gbọ́dọ̀ máa gbé òfin ṣubú, according to the presentation of our apostle. I've seen lawlessness amongst us. Thank God this is a family meeting. I've seen lawlessness ranging from amongst us in the name of chaplaincy, even within the camp. Some people will want to do something terrible. The only way to escape is putting on our polo shirt with our beret, and anything goes. That's not how to go about it. So I recommend, go with this recommendation. They are 6 in number. There is urgent need for re-engineering of the mode of operation of redemption chaplaincy. Please take note of that. To do the above, there is need for an academy that the proprietors of RCI, that is the Redeemed Church of God, must establish as a matter of urgency. Imagine if we have the type of paper that the apostle presented this evening among our modules, and people are taught this under examination condition, conditioning them to see to it that we adhere to this. There will be a change, and we'll be able to fulfill our purpose. There's need for more youths and young adults to be recruited into the ranks and files of RCI, as only a few of them are showing interest in chaplaincy. We must catch them young. We must condition them to decency. Number 4, there is need for the proprietors of RCI, that is the RCCG, to put in machinery for funding the operation of RCI for effectiveness and provision of services that have potential of nation building. When we were told about the memorial garden, the reason we have not been involved, and I must tell you, quote me, was that even the proprietors, our mother church, was expecting us to provide everything. If there's a communique that will be presented after this week, I think this number 4 should be entrenched. And I said, being one of the council, I said, no. By my understanding of the scripture, no soldier go to war at his own expense. Go and search the scripture, you will meet it there, that if I'm misquoting the scripture. If you want us to serve at the memorial garden, you don't need to ask us to task ourselves to provide for the wherewithal. Give us the weapon of war and we shall conquer the battle. But no, I think our proprietors must wake up to see to it that all that we need to be effective. Imagine if the federal government of Nigeria is asking the soldiers to go and procure all those weapon of war, bomber jets, this and that. At the point I learned, whether it is true or not, I don't know, that even the policemen have to buy their uniform themselves. And we say they are corrupt. If they are the one that is clothing themselves, and you say they will not take bribe on the highway, if there is any presentation to the authority, we must present it. It's high time ICI is properly funded so that we can serve the purpose. Number 5, going by the advantages and functions of chaplaincy, there's need for synergy between RCI and missionary agencies in the Redeemed Christian Church of God so that men and officers of RCI can begin to serve their statutory purposes on the mission fields like their counterparts in other forts in secular and faith-based organizations. Our presence must be felt on the mission fields, sharing and caring for our neglected missionaries. Our role must be properly pronounced. And finally, it is recommended here that the proprietors of RCI should do everything possible to create an enabling environment for it to serve in international agencies such as the UN and World Peacekeeping Organization. Can't we do it? Is it doable? I can't hear you. You are already sleeping. My prayer is that all the challenges we are receiving since the beginning of the week will be put together as a kind of vision that will transform to mission, and RCI shall be part of the nation builders. Thank you very much. God bless you.
I think so. I think we can still do better than what we've done. Let's put our hands together. Thank you very much, sir. We really, really appreciate that. I'll still take like 3 questions. If I can see anybody who has any questions. Questions presenting on the paper that regarding the paper that has been presented, National Development and the Redemption Chaplaincy International. Anybody with a question? None? You have a question? Please step forward. Any other question? Any other question? I hope it is not because we all want to get back to our beds. All right, please step out and ask your question.
Thank you very much, sir. Um, I really follow your teaching this evening, and it's quite insightful. But I just want to throw it as a question or a challenge. Part of our duty as chaplain in nation building is to first of all build RCG. In each battalion, in each brigade and division, what are we doing? Is it only when we come to camp we carry out our duty, or when we have special functions, or we are supposed to take responsibility in our various parishes and churches to stand guard to ensure that discipline are upheld in our various domains? That's my question, sir. Because I observe where I'm coming from, observe it's just few of us that are always on operation for our services. I just want to ask, sir, is it right for us to be on operations during our services as chaplain? As chaplain, that's my question, sir.
Yes, sir.
Praise ye the Lord. You asked the question and you have answered it. And I will see it as a food for thought for all of us. We should go back to our various brigades and companies to do the needful. One of the things that I gained when I joined the Redeemed Christian Church of God is that a worker in the Redeemed Christian Church of God served the Lord with little or no supervision. Is that not what you taught us? The elders taught us that one. Not minding whether my pastor is around, not minding whether my area pastor is around, not minding whether the Jew is around. As unto the Lord, and that has helped the Redeemed Christian Church of God this far. The same thing can be extended to RCI. When you came here, you trained, you are commissioned. Who are you waiting for? You have been commissioned to serve as chaplains. One with God is a majority. So when you go back, you organize yourself. Let your presence be felt in your local assemblies. I don't think that the national will scold you or reprimand you for doing the right thing. So I will throw back the question to the questionnaire that who and what is it that is hindering us from performing? Because during the training you are taught so much how to function. But if there is any officer, any senior officer that is saying what you are taught at the national level or during your commissioning, you should not perform, then you let us hear. But I don't think there's anybody that could be one or two, because I remember when the Jews said we should be planting churches. I was a parish pastor, and my area pastor said, no, I don't want mushroom parishes. And I reminded him that the Jews said the most nutritious vegetable is mushroom, according to the specialists. So I want to plant mushroom churches. And to the glory of God, that expanded the area that in the history of our state then, an area was divided into three. Why? Because I was running with the vision that was given at the national. So if you have been commissioned to do the right thing at your catchment area, in your local assembly, do the needful. If anybody try to stop you, I remember it was Babolu Baluma, a retired elder, that was my assistant state pastor. It was the one I ran to. I said, sir, my area pastor was disturbing me from running with the vision of the GO. And he called him to order. Simple. So that is my advice, sir. Go to your local assembly, create awareness, and then let them know at the grassroots, at the council we have emphasized the need for grassroots mobilization. From this week, let us go with the challenge. Let us go and build our nation. Our nation can only be built from the grassroots. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. We can just go ahead and appreciate that. Thank you, sir. There is something that you said, sir, in your presentation that really gladdened my heart, and that is the need for a more structured training, so to speak, for the core. And that takes me to one other observation I would like to make. Coming from you, sir, it's something that is really heartwarming. That also will help with what some of us feel is needed, a proper integration of the RCI into the structure of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. Thank you very much, sir. God bless you. I'm going to hand over the microphone to permit me to use the word, my guy at the top. Let's put our hands together as I welcome Brigadier General Smart Odiawa to the podium. Let's just welcome him. You're welcome, sir. Atama. Atama. Labaka. Labaka.
Monsa. Thank you very much, sir. We sincerely appreciate our Assistant General Commandant and the GOC Finance. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. I will appeal that RTM may, you understand what I mean? Yeah.